Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently 6:20 a.m. on the 28th of October. Probably, if not last Friday, today is a pretty big Friday for counterculture music. And we are getting started by listening to the rest of the visualizers for Fit for a King's The Hell We Create. But first, definitely wanted to give a quick shout out to Shibori Threads with their new Fire and Ice drop featuring Dying Fetus, Cradle of Filth, Children of Bodom, and Ginger. Be sure to go check these hoodies out. They are going to be, I think, running out pretty quickly. And let's get back to the program. I would be getting more, but I already have still 2 pre-orders on the way to my address. So, all right, so now we've pre-ordered a flag, a CD, and then we also have the Shibori Threads jumpsuit coming in hot at some point with the olive green color to match the veil of the character on the album cover. But let's get started with the actual album. With the visualizer for, well, the title track, if I don't pause it. Also, cheers. Oh, it's tight.
This is the hell we create.
Okay, cool. Oh my gosh. We're going to make sure the volume's all the way turned up because this is a banger. And I think the best way to describe it is that compared to their last record, The Path, which I can't believe came out actually during 2020. It was definitely one of those records that I listened to when I was working the job I was at the time. And I remember specifically that with Skull Candy Crushers, very similar to this, but the former Bluetooth ones that I had before I think they broke, I was listening to The Path over and over and over again because it was nice and bassy. It was simple. It was just like a dancing. It was an album you can dance to. And obviously Locked in My Head was a radio single. So like that, it was cool to see that in Hot Topic and at the mall when I did, even like half a year after that album came out back in 2020. And I guess for me, it's funny to think that they're already getting ready to release what will be another album with Reaper and End, the other side, which obviously it seems like this upcoming album is going to be a lot darker than even The Path. And I like the sound of that because The Path was really cool. The merch was like pretty spot on, but like it didn't catch me as much as it could, I guess. So I'm definitely ready for that. Sorry, phone notifications. So yeah, it was really cool to experience the album during the pandemic, as it really did feel like a kind of like a quarantine album. It was definitely a dark album, and I remember how many times I listened to that doing overnight shifts, just doing tags, like literally replacing stickers on items in a store, and I would just be listening to The Path and be dancing back and forth, and it was an experience. But now we have the first record since everything kind of came back and is in full force, so let us hear the rest of the End. Definitely wanted to say one more thing too, sorry. So, Hardcore, another channel. I think he's Ukrainian. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He's like Ukrainian, but he's in Canada now. He was saying when he was doing his full album listening session, his front to back per se, as we know on the channel, that the only thing he didn't like about The Path was the kind of the simplistic guitars that I mentioned, right? So I think this song, if nothing else, that'll definitely be like the ear candy for him. Because, yeah, I know that, and I get it. Like, it was a lot simpler, a lot more chuggy. But I think this album is going to correct that. And I think they heard that and they're like, you know what, you're right. And they're just like, like my darkest days are screaming in my face. Who can I blame? It is blue. Can't let it go. It's on your face. You're an ocean with no waves. There's no words left to give. It is alone. I can't do this alone. Can't do this alone. Did the other guy leave? I just noticed. Will you? And of course, the music videos are right here. Crawl from within
sick. Haha.
Aha. An honorary sequel to God of War. That was like the heaviest. That was a groovy one. I love that one. I do love these little intermissions with the logo though. It makes this easier for me. This is Fracture.
Alone in the darkest sea, your love cuts like a knife. Embraced by the coldest breeze, a sadness I can't hide. And now we're worlds apart, but I still feel you. Losing myself 'cause I was holding on to the person that I saw inside. Every lie you justified. Now I'm leaving you behind. I don't need you in my life. You in my life. I don't need you. All this time I wasted, lost in your eyes. The endless cycle shows comfort I'll never know. And now we're
Wish. That was a good song.
I know it can get easier dealing with the pain, watching through the window as the light begins to fade, reaching out to someone to take it all away. I know it can get easier, just wish it was today.
I see you lost in the darkness. Your body's breaking down, so afraid and tormented. Letting someone wear the crown. Another sad affair, a modern life stranded. Sulfur in the air, fighting short-handed. Don't let the shadow take the light. I know it can get easier, dealing with the pain, watching through the window as the light begins to fade, reaching out to someone to take it all away. I know it can get easier, just wish it was today. Left to live in a shell, so hollow, fighting with the grief, the bitter sting of rejection, forsaken, a detriment to the healing. Another sad affair, a modern life stranded, sulfur in the air, fighting short-handed. Don't let the shadow take the light. I know it can get easier, dealing with the pain, watching through the window as the light begins to fade, reaching out to someone to take it all away. I know it can get easier, just wish it was today. I know it can get easier, dealing with the pain,
I love his voice.
watching through the window as the light begins to fade, reaching out to someone to take it all away. I know it can get easier, just wish it was today.
All right, almost done. This is a short album, even without those like 4 other songs. It's only 38 minutes long. All right, this is What You Left Behind. This one. Get that.
this house doesn't feel like home. When the ghost of the past walk through these halls, just a part of the syndrome. Skeleton so lost hid in the walls. I don't run, cause I can't escape. Every time they call my name.
Let down, drag down in the pouring rain. Left to drown, I see it on their face. Every promise you have broken. Another crack formed in the foundation. Maybe they'll hear us screaming from our lungs. Maybe they'll see us standing in our graves, fighting through our pain, through our pain. Awake in an empty tomb, floating echoes reside that were left by you. Living life in a circle, I feel you here, you're the toxin in this room. I can't run, I can't escape, until the day that you're erased. Let down, drag down in the pouring rain. Left to drown, I see it on their face. Every promise you have broken. Another crack formed in the foundation. Maybe they'll hear us screaming from our lungs. Maybe they'll see us standing in our graves, fighting through our pain. Flesh of your flesh, blood of your blood. Get nothing, no one takes out too long. Flesh of your flesh, blood of your blood. Get nothing, no one takes them out too long. Takes them out too long. They may be forgotten, but I won't forget the hate that you left, the unpayable debt. With each passing moment, the fire consumes. Your pride will bury you. Take a look at what you left behind. Take a look at what you left behind.
Incredible. No, that was a great album. So that was The Hell We Create, a new 38-minute, 10-track album from metalcore titans Fit for a King. This band has been around for such a long time, and really I have been following them since the Dark Skies, Power of Pain, and let's see, yeah, that was the Dark Skies album cycle. So I've been following them now for quite a long time. And over the course of all that time, that wasn't even half of their discography, right? So I need to definitely go back in time and do front to back sessions for all of the albums before. I think that would be super fun to just look back on and go back in time for, alongside all the other legendary bands in the deathcore scene and their legendary albums that I have yet to check out, including and not limited to As Blood Runs Black, All Shall Perish, Despised Icon, and plenty of others. But we're talking about Fit for a King. And thank goodness that Kerrang magazine and Ryan Kirby himself decided to cook up ahead of time a track-by-track lyrical guide. So we can go ahead and use the contents of this article for our lyrical rating for the first time ever. I'm not sure if other bands have been doing this on the regular recently, but this is an awesome opportunity nonetheless. So, as quoting the article and little bits and pieces from it, we're going to summarize. Track 1, the song encompasses the overall meaning of the record and the stories that it covers. We have the ability to create the hell for ourselves and for others based on our thoughts and actions. Whether it's suffering from anxiety over things that will never happen or aren't true, or making poor decisions, such as the ones that resulted in our now son, I was always confused by that word reading this yesterday, being taken from their bio parents and creating a hell for them as they were placed in 17 different homes before us. To put it simply, the song is the broad picture of the meaning of the record, and that's just the title track. The title track was amazing for this record. 2, The End, The Other Side, which we all kind of had the impression, and this was kind of something that was circling around when the music video was uploaded, but on February 3rd, 2021, my wife, Crystal, went to the emergency room. She had barely eaten in a week and was beginning to lose movement as well as speech. The song takes the listener through the night I almost lost my wife to a stroke and me contemplating a life without her, something she is still battling through every day. She's about to have her third brain surgery, which is crazy. I can't even imagine having to go through that process, but I hope everything, at least by now, is starting to improve. Track 3, Falling Through the Sky. I grew up in a conservative I grew up in a conservative Christian household and fortunately, had a very trauma-free upbringing. I thought I had everything figured out when it came to stress and anxiety because I had been able to handle everything life had thrown at me, and with the help of God, quote, could get through anything. That's what I thought, at least. When real life hit me in 2020, between bringing in our niece and nephew, my wife almost dying, and losing my job to the pandemic, I absolutely fell apart. I suffered panic attacks, wasn't eating, and even developed extreme hypochondria, which I'm still working through today. Which that's intense, man. And I mean, I was going through a similar process when I was a lot younger. Just in general, dealing with anxiety and thinking that because I was in a very trauma-free household, mostly like I would say, and not to get into too much detail about my own personal life, but like, almost like just certain religious views or certain cultural views being pressed and sometimes even forced upon me at an earlier age. A loose sense of depersonalization, really, but not that bad. It's not like I was, being forced to forget my name or anything, but that's probably the closest thing I can get to that. So when I went early on, trauma-free childhood, except for those things, I was like, yeah, my life isn't bad, so I shouldn't really be having stress or anxiety. But public school is also terrible growing up. So, and like the system is still really, really screwed up because it demands so much from new American students and stuff. But yeah, absolutely, completely understand that. Just be like, hey, your life isn't that bad. You shouldn't be having anxiety and stress, but still having it. It sucks, but it happens, and everybody has stress and anxiety. The important part to me is just understanding it, acknowledging it, and seeing the best and healthiest way for you and your surrounding loved ones, your peers, to handle that situation if it gets really, really bad. But that was Falling Through the Sky. Really, really great track. One of my favorites. And I loved Ryan Kirby's tweet. Just like, hey, even if you guys don't like it, my mom loves this song. So I feel like a winner. I'm like, absolutely, dude. That's the exact mindset you should have this late into your career. But 4 is Sink Below. The song is kind of a continuation of Falling Through the Sky. It discusses how I was keeping together on the outside until I finally succumbed to my first ever panic attack. I really wanted people to hear the song and understand that you need to speak with someone when you're going through things, because bottling up truly leads to bad things. And that's unfortunately just a toxic masculine mindset nowadays here in the United States, is just bottling up shit. Because it's like, dude, no one wants to hear about your problems. Everybody's got their own problems. And that's always been such a poisonous statement to me, because that's, I think, led to a lot of people making a not so great decision and taking their own life, which, not to get like too just like, whoa, why are we talking about that? But it's still something important to talk about. And I mean, I suffer from that same thing still to this very day. But also at the end of the day, it's more or less a mindset of, well, eventually at the end of the day, and some people are like, you're going to die alone someday. Like, no matter if you have all loved ones or a family or kids of your own, you're going to die alone. I'm like, well, that's just a perspective issue then, bud. Because for me, it's like, you do need to eventually figure out things with yourself. Not by yourself, but with yourself. Because at the end of the day, yeah, true, to a certain degree, all you have is you. But also, that's what brotherhood and friendship and family is for, is to kind of share that stress, share those negative emotions. That way you can get through the day without feeling that true loneliness. And I think that's why a lot of people feel so lonely, is because they're not simply ignoring everything and deciding to reach out to their friends and family. So please, if you're going through something rough, do that. Sorry. Track 5 being Reaper. Can you not? I hate that. Reaper is a love letter to one of my favorite shows of all time, Dark. The show deals with the idea of time being God and something that is inevitable and unchangeable. The events with my wife really made this show hit different, since death was constantly on my mind since that night. Yeah, I get that for sure. And the moment that things like start to get better, you're like, I really need to appreciate that could have gone, that could have been so much worse. You know what I mean? It's all about being humble and appreciating everything in the moment. Appreciate, but never settle. That's like one of my favorite phrases as of recently. And it's a very specific phrase. It's not an implementation, or it's not implemented to apply to greed or sin. So, appreciate the food you have before you, but never settle, gorge out. Like, no, it's more or less just like, appreciate the things that are important, but understand that if you work hard enough, there is something better out there for you to have more consistently in your life. Track 6, times like this. Politics have become a blood sport, with people believing that each side is evil and constantly fighting. Meanwhile, the establishment rakes in money and manipulates us for gain while we stay divided. The song is about, if we settled our differences, we could elect people of integrity and not the ones who only care about themselves. And that's a really important statement, because unfortunately for me, it's like, politics is just cursed. It's just a cursed meme. You got Sleepy Joe in office. You had China beforehand, and like I voted for that fucker too. Um, like it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. And at the end of the day, for me, it's like, no matter who it is, if someone has enough power, and once they go through whatever mandatory rules you have to abide by to be a political advisor, a president, a congressman, a senator, a mayor, um, like, it seems that no matter who it is, they have to, behind the scenes, abide by certain rules that are established by people way higher than even the president. You know what I mean? It's not even a conspiracy anymore. We all know that there are powers greater than the president, greater than the UN. They're just hiding in the shadows. Every time we, go down the street and you see your shadow kind of stretch across the sidewalk, like they're hiding in that. You know what I mean? But agreed, like, politics is so corrupt, and if it wasn't for all these major political parties, which I think could be changing in the near future, with like the well-established Freemason party behind the scenes, and like that's just been a thing since the beginning of the country's history, so it's not a conspiracy, it's a thing. And there are Mason lodges everywhere across the United States. I think one day, if everything just becomes a Mason party, and I'm not supporting masonry, but I feel that if that's like how things went, then people would be a lot more, they would be a lot more united against that front, because masonry, Freemasonry especially, is not a good, big no-no. But yeah, that's a really cool song. 7, Eyes Roll Back. In 2010, I suffered from sleep paralysis and saw a demonic-like figure. It's something that has always stuck with me. In that time, I was a selfish person, and writing lyrics that didn't back up my actions. Sometimes I feel that that moment was used to wake me up. I've experienced sleep paralysis at least once before, and I remember feeling all 5 digits of a burning hot hand on my neck, but I couldn't see anything in front of me. And the scariest thing was too that during my own sleep paralysis experience, like my buddy was right next to me as I was taking a nap, and I remember screaming at him like, "Hayden, Hayden, wake me up!" And then when I actually woke up, I realized that he couldn't hear me. I was like, "Hey, dude, I was calling out for you." I was at least trying to, and like that's what he said. I sounded like really. It was just like, and there was nothing else because I was asleep. I was stuck, and then I snapped awake, and I was like, "Dude, I was screaming at you," and he's like, "Dude, I didn't hear you at all. You were just kind of like mumbling in your sleep," and it was very terrifying. That was a very sobering thing. Oh, yeah, I know how sleep paralysis can be. 8 is fracture. Quote, our son and daughter have a lot of trauma from the hurt they experience being abused by their parents. The bond that they have with their parents, even after all that has happened to them, is causing them constant pain. But the realization that they can move on and accept their new life has greatly helped. The song is the message they want to send to their birth parents, which that's important. This album has a lot of lyrical substance to it, and for that, I really appreciate that Ryan per se decided to put his heart on his sleeve as much as he did. Track 9 would be Reaching Out. The song, quote, the song was written by our singer bassist Tuck, so I'll give you a little quote from him on it. Quote, before going into the studio, we knew we wanted to write an album centered around Kirby. He had experienced some unique trials and tribulations that the rest of us simply didn't. One of those was adopting his niece and nephew. I wrote the chorus as a tribute to the kids. Something just trying to say that we see them and want them to win. I can't place myself in their pain, but we can listen. And that's really cool. I love that throughout this entire album cycle, essentially, I was like, why isn't Tuck? Because I didn't even know his name, so now I do. I'm like, why isn't Tuck doing any vocals? Like, he's usually doing vocals, especially for this type of material. But I'm glad that they decided to save his singing for the second to last track and the last track. I think that was a really cool touch to this record that is unique among the entire Fit for a King discography, and it's cool to know because I mean you never know, half of the bands in the scene, they could really just be business partners even after all this time, instead of being like family, like brothers and stuff, which is super cool to see. That Fit for a King is another example of that, and on top of that, from a different perspective, they continue to write about who is now um, Ryan and his wife, Crystal, their kids, formerly their Ryan's niece and nephew. It's cool to see that, even Tuck, per se, is involved in that process and he's aware of everything going on. And that with this record, they were like, you know what, let's make this even more personal than what we usually do, because I never really felt a personal connection with any of the other previous records. It was more like, wow, they sound really cool, and like maybe I needed to look back, but it's really cool to see them doing this and like giving Ryan's trials and tribulations, quote, the attention that they deserve. Wrapping up, 10, What You Left Behind. The song was from two perspectives, one being my wife's and I's, and the other being from our kids. It's a song speaking to their biological parents about how hard it is for them to move on, the hurt and trauma that they have caused them, how pride is keeping them from being a part of their life, not owning up to the mistakes, and the pain that they have caused, which is a really cool way to wrap up such a personal record to me. I really, really, really enjoyed this record, and I wish I could see them today, actually. They are going to be playing in Phoenix with Pierce the Veil, I Prevail, and I think there's one other one. I think it's like an actual pop punk band. I forgot. But that was an amazing record. And lyrically speaking, it's cool to have this context provided ahead of time, because it's awesome to sit down with the bands. But sometimes it's like, well, you don't really have the time to do that. And for example, right now it's 7:07 a.m. I've been up for an hour and a half already, getting this recorded. So it's really cool that we were provided that lyrical context via Kerrang magazine and Ryan Kirby himself. I felt really, I felt really goofy tweeting him. I'm like, hey, do you want to dig under the record lyrically? And he's like, dude, I just retweeted an article for that. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was really cool. And that being said, man, a fat freaking 10 out of 10 for the lyrical content of this record. Because of that, because of having the opportunity to do this and do the front to back session per se, a little different. It is really, really refreshing, and it allows for us to kind of like, just do it differently. And that's really cool. It's really special. Vocally, we hear a lot of different variations of singing from Ryan Kirby on this record, and especially with What You Left Behind, I think if you guys listen hard enough, he's like utilizing some new singing techniques, which is really cool. That, and throughout the entirety of this record, including the singles that we've already reacted to up until recently, there is a lot on this record to digest. And I'm no Mark Garrett from Carter Chef Academy, but I know that he put his all into this record. I know that there were various techniques. Tell you what, Eyes Roll Back, Jesus, man. Me personally, I don't remember the last time on any of the recent records that I heard him doing those type of heavies, and that was a treat. So, vocally speaking, 10 out of 10. Instrumentally speaking, and I've noticed recently that with the way that I do the instrumental rating part, it could easily just be what this album sounds like to me. So we might end up just switching it over to that, because I am not an instrumentalist by any means yet. So the sound of this record, I think after the last two records, that being Dark Skies and The Path, I think those are the last two records. And that's really like what we've known so far over the last like 4 or 5 years now, which is crazy to think about. But over the last two records, I think tracks like When Everything Means Nothing, The Price of Agony, God of Fire, Locked, parentheses, In My Head, and other, as I quoted before in other videos, Hot Topic singles. These are songs that you would hear walking through Hot Topic, aiming for those songs to be radio singles, if that was their intention. Like Boom Bada Bang, Locked, In My Head, radio single. Let's get it out there. Let's make it as radio rock as possible, but also stick to our formula. Just a little bit of Fit for a King level heavy in there. You know what I mean? As far as sound, this record, I think, is phenomenal. And what I'm trying to say is it really is consistently radio rock for Fit for a King sound. Because Fit for a King has been around for such a long time now, people. Like, I get it. I absolutely understand. And I do think that where this album isn't as heavy as, per se, their first three albums, the heavier part comes with the lyrical context. Same thing with Bad Omens. Same thing with The Devil Wears Prada. Same thing with, I would say, Wolves at the Gate earlier this year, but like I haven't listened to Eulogies in its entirety yet. We might be doing that soon just to catch up with another Solid State Records artist. But I wouldn't know for sure on Wolves at the Gate. But where genretically, if that's even the way to pronounce that, where genretically they are not incredibly heavy. It's not more consistently chugs and just breakdowns and stuff, which is a metalcore thing, but not really anymore, I would think. It's more or less like a break, where it isn't musically heavy, it's lyrically heavy with this record, and I love that. So I think instrumentally, as far as the sound of the record, very much a collective When Everything Means Nothing, a collective Locked in My Head, but more prominently with tracks like End, The Other Side, which like immediately I'm like, yeah, this is When Everything Means Nothing, coming back strong. Eyes Roll Back, for me, like immediately I thought, okay, this is God of Fire Part 2, which is really cool. Just like the level of heavy it is and the level of energy it is meant to bring to the stage. That is where it counts. Is they have noticed what works for them, what works for the audience. They decided to bring that all together and make a freak combination, 10 songs, pretty quick, pretty short songs, short but sweet, right? And this whole entire album really, as far as the sound, is short and sweet, but that's like overall thoughts. Album cover, I think visually speaking, as far as the aesthetic of it, the album cover for The Hell We Create, if it's meant to parallel that of The Path, then good job. And I think with this album cover specifically, it brought that theme back a little bit, right? We have this female character. We have no idea who she is. Maybe on this cover, it's Crystal, or it's meant to be a woman kind of resembling Crystal. I have no idea. Because a lot of the trials and tribulations discussed on this record, quote, they do involve Ryan being thankful that things didn't go the wrong way with his wife, which is cool. So if the album cover and the female character on it covered in a veil, holding a rose upside down on fire, like there's a lot of details on this album cover. Very strange details, but it works because it's an album cover. If that was the intention, then absolutely. And nonetheless, I think that the olive green detail with the veil was genius. I think the blood on the hands of the character is genius. I think the navy blue background is really cool. So it's very much like The Path and its album cover, but it's a lot more colorful, and I love that. It's great. And that's why I pre-ordered the flag today. I pre-ordered a CD, and to be honest, I wish that Shibori did a little bit more with the Fit for a King collab. Maybe like made the other half of the hoodie navy blue or something, you know what I mean? I think that would have been really cool because that really is the secondary cover, the secondary color on the album cover, where the veil on the female character is olive green, the background is navy blue. But that's just me. I still pre-ordered it, so nothing really to complain about. Overall thoughts? This record was fantastic. I think this was their strongest material yet, and I don't think that compared to any of the previous records, they've made anything so strong. And sure, it's a little bit softer than even The Path, but also The Path collectively, it had its great moments. It was nice and gritty. It was nice and simplistic. And for someone who is also in love right now, and in the recent years with beatdown, deathcore, slamming deathcore, slamming brutal, like all that shit. Luke, just like their most recent song is Surfer Slam. Like how Neanderthal can you get in a good way? Absolutely a good way, because Luke is a creative genius. But in recent years, like The Path was a really interesting taste for Fit for a King. Because that was during the pandemic. That was like dead set in the pandemic, and at that time when that album was releasing, I'm sure that's really when Ryan was going through his trials that are quoted on this record and that are expressed throughout the entirety of this record. I love the album cover. Like we already said that. Album cover 10 out of 10. Boom. Lyrically 10 out of 10. Vocally 10 out of 10. Instrumentally 10 out of 10. So I think it's a pretty easy 10 out of 10. And hell, this might be making it to my top 10 for the year, just because I'm running out of space for sure, but I do want to incorporate some softer records. You know what I mean? You gotta have balance. I can't just have 10 different deathcore albums that I absolutely love. So yeah, most likely alongside Bad Omens, The Death of Peace of Mind, The Hell We Create by Fit for a King will probably be making it to my top 10, even if I am a Satanist per se. Fit for a King, not obviously a Christian band, but they're on a pretty Christian record label with other prominently Christian metalcore bands in the scene, right? So, as a Satanist, I love this record. As a musician, I love this record. as a metalhead, I love this record. So I think that's a pretty good rating. I think that's a pretty good album reaction and review. And just saying, not every day does a band actually make music videos for every single one of their tracks. This whole album was a collective music video, and for that I appreciate the artistic efforts and the acknowledgement that for people like me, it's nice to have a lot more eye candy throughout the entire album. This has been Sean Cross doing another front to back session for Fit for a King's The Hell We Create. Most likely we will be doing other front to back sessions for Fire from the Gods, Soul Revolution this weekend. And if Rise Records decides to not be a bunch of butt cheeks, we'll go ahead and do a front to back session for Polyphia's Remember That You Will Die, being that we have not checked out ABC or Ego Death, as well as the rest of the record. This has been Sean Cross. Buenos dias.